Welcome and thank you for joining Research Nova Scotia's JURA information session for the Focused Research Investment, otherwise referred to as FRI, the expression of interest stage. My name is Megan Belfontaine. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the Director of Research Support here at Research Nova Scotia, and I'll be your host for today's session. Before we start this afternoon, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that Research Nova Scotia is in Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. This land is governed by the treaties of peace and friendship that were struck in 1725 and 26 that have established a long-standing relationship between the nations. We are all treaty people. I also want to recognize that the people of African descent who have lived and contributed to Nova Scotia have been here for more than 400 years. So before I start, I have a few housekeeping items to go over. First, I just want to confirm that today's webinar will focus just on the technical aspects of your FRI submission. We will, however, briefly go over where you can find more information on the FRI. Second, I'll ask that you please enter any questions into the Q&A section found at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You may enter questions at any time during the presentation, and I will do my best to answer all questions at the end of the webinar. Finally, also note that today's webinar is being recorded and will be available along with copies of the webinar slides and our past webinars on the Research Nova Scotia website later this week. With that, I will turn off my camera to conserve some bandwidth and we will get started. All right. So today's webinar will cover a variety of topics relating to the technical submission of your FRI expression of interest application, including where you can find more information about the FRI, important deadlines, the application process, the review and evaluation processes, and finally, a short Q&A section focused on the technical submission of your expression of interest. To find out more about the FRI, you will first want to navigate to the Research Nova Scotia website, click on the Initiatives header, and select Focused Research Investments from the dropdown. This will bring you to the main landing page for the FRI, which is divided into many helpful sections. To learn more about the FRI expressions of interest background and what we're looking for, you can watch our webinar that was recorded on March 7th. In this webinar, our CEO, Stefan Leslie, provided an overview of the initiative and answered many of the questions from the research community. You can find a recording of this webinar by clicking on the webinars section of our website. We've also released 2 podcast episodes on the FRI, which can be found under the resources section of the FRI landing page or in the podcast section of our website. We strongly recommend accessing all 3 of these resources before you start work on your FRI expression of interest in order to set yourself up for success. Next, we'll take a quick look at the anticipated timeline for this opportunity. All expressions of interest must be submitted through Research Nova Scotia's JURA system by 1 p.m. Atlantic time on Monday, April 29th, 2024. JURA will not allow submissions that come in after this time, and any applications not submitted by this date and time will be marked ineligible for consideration. Once submitted, Research Nova Scotia will invite a number of applicants to submit a full proposal with a tentative submission deadline of Wednesday, July 31st, 2024 at 1 p.m. It is important to note that this date may change. We strongly recommend that you do not leave your submissions to the last minute. Technical errors and computer shutdowns can and do occur at the worst possible moments, and unfortunately, exceptions cannot be made under any circumstances. So now the big question is, how do you apply for the award? The first step is to confirm your eligibility criteria. Be sure to review the criteria details found on the FRI landing page in the March 7th webinar and in the guidelines for this opportunity. If there are any questions regarding eligibility, please contact us at the email address found at the end of this presentation. Next, you must register for a JURA account and complete your EDIA self-declaration. JURA is Research Nova Scotia's online grant management portal. All applications must be submitted through JURA. As a first step, you will navigate to JURA from the Research Nova Scotia website. You will select the For Researchers heading and click on JURA Login. Once you reach the JURA homepage, you may log in using existing system credentials if you've applied for a previous award, or if you're new to the system, click the Register button to sign up. Once you're at the registration page, you will first need to look up your organization. This should be the host of your FRI. If you select the wrong organization at sign up, please reach out to our JURA help desk and we will be happy to help you resolve this issue. When entering the name of your organization, a drop-down box with all matching entries will appear. Be sure to select that entry from the pop-up box in order to properly associate your account with the organization. If your organization does not appear in the search box, you will need to register a new organization by clicking the Register as a New Organization Here link. So if you're registering a new organization, you have to complete all the fields marked with an asterisk, complete the CAPTCHA, and click Submit to register the new organization. Once registered, you'll receive a registration complete message, and you can click the Research Nova Scotia logo to return to the login screen, click Register again, and the new organization that you've just registered will be available. As noted, if you sign up under the wrong host, please reach out to the RNS Help Desk and we would be happy to assist. Once you've selected your organization, you will complete the contact information section. And again, all sections that are marked with an asterisk are required. Finally, you will complete an equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility self-declaration. EDIA strengthen the research community and the quality, social relevance, and impact of research. EDIA-informed analyses, systems, and practices ensure barriers faced by underrepresented or disadvantaged groups are identified and addressed, which in turn enhances the integrity of application and selection processes, strengthens research outputs, and increases the overall excellence of research. All information provided to Research Nova Scotia will be kept strictly confidential and will not be shared with third parties. If you do not wish to self-identify, you have the option to select Prefer Not to Say for each question. You may change your answers to these questions at any time by following the instructions outlined in how to complete an EDIA self-declaration document found in the guidelines for this opportunity. Once all fields are complete, you'll hit the Submit button to create your account in JURA. Shortly after submitting, you will receive an automated email from Smart Simple with a link to set your password. Once your password is set, you will need to agree to the JURA privacy policy and terms of use and will be redirected to your user homepage. As noted earlier in the presentation, the EDIA self-declaration is required of all primary applicants. Users who have an existing JURA account will first need to log into the system with their existing credentials, click on the personal profile link on their homepage, and finally, select the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility tab. As with the option for new users, if you do not wish to self-identify, you will have the option to select Prefer Not to Say for each question. Once you've successfully registered for JURA and you've completed your EDIA self-declaration, you can start working on your application. From your JURA homepage, you will select the Funding Opportunities section. From here, select the Focused Research Investments opportunity and click Apply Now to launch your application. Before you begin your application, you will need to click the Save Draft button. This will assign you a unique application number in the system, which will allow you to return to your application at any time. In subsequent sessions, you can find your draft EOI application in the In Progress Applications section of your JURA homepage. So while working on this application, you must follow the guidelines for this opportunity. These guidelines may be downloaded from the top of your application in JURA, or they can be found on the Research Nova Scotia website on the Fry landing page under Expressions of Interest. It is imperative that you take the time to read these guidelines thoroughly to set up your application for success. If you have any individuals who you would like to have viewing access for your application, so that means someone who can log into JURA and read what you've entered, you may invite them to the application by first clicking on the Invitations tab on the left-hand side of your screen. This will bring you to the invitation space in JURA. You want to click this plus button to add a new invitation. You may add as many viewers as you like. Next, you will enter the individual contact information in the fields provided. If the individual already has a JURA account, be sure to add their email address that is affiliated with their JURA profile. You will then click the Save button to save the information. Finally, click the Invite button to send the invitation to your contact via email. You'll be asked to confirm that everything is ready for send out. If so, click Yes. The status of the viewer will now change to invited, and they will receive an email similar to this template found here. They will then need to follow the link and the subsequent prompts in JURA to accept the application or invitation. If you require a second person or a third person even to have editing and submission access on your application, please reach out to the Research Nova Scotia Help Desk with this individual's contact information, and we can set this up on your behalf. Also quickly note that any individual added as a co-primary applicant, so those with submission power, as we just now talked about, they will be required to submit their EDIA declaration through JURA as well. So finally, you can navigate to the different sections of your EOI application using the tabs located at the top of your screen. Any question marked with an asterisk is mandatory. I'll also quickly note that JURA does not automatically save your progress, so we recommend that you save frequently to avoid losing any of your work. While you're completing your application, there are a few areas where you may have some confusion, so I wanted to spend a few moments of today's webinar to review these details. First, we'll discuss how to change the host associated with your FRI application. In order to check the organization that is associated with your JURA account, you will first navigate to your JURA homepage. From here, select your organization profile. The name of the organization you selected upon registration to JURA will be displayed. If this organization will not act as the host of your FRI, please email the JURA Help Desk with your application ID number and the name of the host with which your FRI expression of interest should be aligned. Next, we will review the key team members, partners, and collaborators table. This table can be found in the practical details section of your application. To launch the table, click on the Open button. This will launch a pop-up window where you may add as many team members, partners, and collaborators as you need by clicking the plus button at the bottom of the pop-up window. There is no maximum word count in these fields, and we ask that you are please provide thorough explanations of how each individual or organization will contribute to your FRI and what conversations you've had with them regarding their commitment. These fields can be expanded by dragging and dropping the bottom right-hand corner of the field. If you need to erase one of your rows, you may do so by clicking the X button next to that row. Once you've added all of the information for your key team members, partners, and collaborators, click the Save button to save all of the information. If you have left a field blank, you will be unable to save the information, and you will receive a pop-up message confirming that your data could not be saved due to missing information. Please add the required information and save again. So finally, we'll briefly review the annual spending profile table. This table can also be found in the practical details section of your EOI application. You will launch the pop-up window by clicking Open. You will enter the anticipated funding for each year of your proposed FRI. If you do not have spending in years 6 and/or 7, you must enter 0 in these fields in order to save your data. The final row of this table here will show the running total of your FRI budget. Finally, you'll notice 3 buttons at the bottom of your FRI EOI application. First, we've already mentioned this several times today, so you'll be familiar with the Save Draft button. As noted, the information entered into JURA will not automatically be saved, so save early, save often, and ensure that you do not lose any of your work. You may withdraw your application, your expression of interest application at any time prior to the deadline by clicking on the Withdraw button. Once your application is complete and ready for submission, we first suggest that you review how your application will appear to the FRI Advisory Panel by clicking on the EOI Summary button found at the top of your application in JURA. Clicking this button will produce a PDF version of your application. This is the version of your application that will be shared with the panel for their review. As such, we strongly recommend taking the time to make sure that all of your application is showing up as intended before submitting your EOI. Once you are satisfied with your application, click the Submit button to submit your application. If you try to submit your application without completing one of the mandatory fields, you will receive a submission failed message that will direct you to correct the information in your application. You must then navigate to each section of the application and correct these errors. This may mean entering text into a field you missed, uploading a document to the correct field, or you may receive an error message relating to your EDIA self-declaration. To resolve this error, click the Applicant Home button, click on your personal profile, and then navigate to the Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Accessibility tab. You will need to complete the questions noted in your submission failure message. This may be regarding Indigenous identity, racialized minority group, disability, gender identity, language, or age cohort. As noted, you may choose to select Prefer Not to Stay for any or all of these categories. As a reminder, the EDIA declaration is required for all primary applicants. Once completed and saved, you will need to return to your expression of interest and try to submit again. We strongly encourage you to submit your expression of interest as early as possible to ensure that technical errors such as these do not prevent the submission of your application on time. Once the expression of interest submission deadline has passed, the FRI review process starts with an external advisory panel review. The terms of reference and a list of panel members can be found on the FRI landing page under Advisory Panel. The panel may request additional information from the applicant during the course of their review. Once completed, Research Nova Scotia will send out invitations to submit a full application. Hopefully, this webinar, along with the March 7th webinar and the podcast, have provided you with answers to most of your questions. However, I wanted to take a few final moments to address where you may find answers to a few of the frequently asked questions regarding this opportunity. First, navigate to the FRI landing page on the Research Nova Scotia website and click on the FAQ section. You can then scroll down and click through the answers to any of these questions. I will also note that the date these were last updated can be found at the top of the page. If you would like to receive emails with details of any of the new questions added or updates or corrections related to FRI, you may navigate to the FRI landing page, click on Expressions of Interest, and then scroll down and add your name, email, and organization to our list. Updates, FAQs, and corrections will then be delivered to your inbox as they're updated. If you require support with your application, please do not hesitate to reach out to the appropriate contact listed here. So that wraps up the formal part of this presentation. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us for today's webinar, and I'll now open the floor to questions. As a quick reminder, I will only be answering questions directly related to the technical portions of your expression of interest submission. Any other general questions about FRI should be directed here to the info@researchns.ca email address. And any questions you may have can be put into the Q&A feature here on Zoom. And if I don't get to your question before the end of the session, or if I need to refer to a colleague to answer the question, I will reach out directly via email after the webinar. So I will just open up the Q&As here and start my video. All right. So the first question I have here is, do you have to use a certain browser? As of yesterday, the key partners would not open and simply had a link for information listed. So there shouldn't be the need to have a particular browser. JURA does work better on Chrome from my experience, but if you are having those kind of technical issues, feel free to reach out to our help desk account and we can see if we can resolve them. Usually our first line of defense is clearing cache, clearing your browser history, and then trying again. But if you continue to have issues on a certain browser, I would recommend Chrome. But again, please reach out to our help desk if you continue to experience issues. Okay, and then we have someone else they tried to access the key team members table and it wasn't working. So that should be working as far as we can tell, but if you can provide me with specific details of what wasn't working, reach out to our help desk. And if you want to send along a screenshot, that will be really helpful in assisting us to answer those kind of questions as to what may be happening with those key team member tables, because it does seem like a couple of you may be having issues with that aspect of it. So it would be something that we should look into for sure. Okay, so someone else says, if we are contemplating a new organization as the host of the FRI, how do we indicate that in the JURA form? So there is a section in the JURA form that requests an FRI host. So you can put the name of the potential host there and then just send off a quick email to our help desk account with the name of that new proposed host, and we can add it as an organization um, onto our list of organization in JURA and associate that application with that new host. Um, so everything's going to go through help desk. Okay. So, and this question is, if we have a graphic representation to enhance understanding, how should we add those? That's a great question. There is a section of your JURA application. It's called appendices. So if you scroll to the very bottom of that, there's a section called Endnotes and Bibliography. That certainly doesn't have to just be Endnotes and Bibliography. You're welcome to add any kind of graphic representation that you feel would help support your FRI expression of interest to that space as well. We're happy to see those. So that looks like all the questions that I have running through. So I'll just kind of sit here for a moment just to let people type. And again, if you have any other questions after this webinar, you can feel free to reach out to us at this info account or even at the help desk account if it's something technical that something in Jura isn't working, you need to change your host. We're happy to help support those kind of inquiries. All right, so I'm not seeing anything else come through right now. So I'll leave this up here just for another moment so that everyone can write them down. And we look forward to hearing from everybody and have a lovely rest of your afternoon.